In this video, I want to talk about why you're a crash out and it shows. Okay. So, welcome to the channel. I'm Bryce. I'm a men's self mastery coach, and I struggled with everything that I'm about to talk about in this list. So, my goal is that maybe you may see yourself in this list. And if you've got some of this stuff going on, you can start putting in the energy and the effort into correcting this. All right. Obviously, crashing out, it's the new term of, 2024 to 2026. It's one of them new trendy terms, but ultimately it just means losing your shit, not being able to keep control over yourself when you get super emotional about things. All right. And I struggled with this to a degree. All right. Now, I wasn't walking down the street yelling at people and cussing at people, but my issue was more of that I had like internal chaos going on. When somebody would say something to me, I would internalize it. It would just ruin my mood, and it would really dictate how I would respond in certain situations, specifically in my relationships. That's where I dealt with it quite a bit. And it took me some time to learn how to stop doing that. I had to equip myself with some tools that I didn't have as a younger man. All right. So let's just go ahead and into the list. Okay. So one of the first signs that you're a crash out and that it shows, and people may shy away from you, is that you get defensive very easily. Okay. It could be something super simple. You could be having a conversation about whether or not LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. And that may sound like a normal, casual conversation, but before you know it, the conversation escalates because you're like defending your stance, and you're defending it so much, you're getting agitated that somebody else is not seeing your point of view. And then when they don't see your point of view, you start to kind of like lose it a little bit. Maybe your tone starts to change. Maybe you start, you could even start name calling, and you start making things personal rather than just sticking to the topic at hand. And I used to struggle with this as well too. It was almost like trying to plead my case in a way, making somebody see things from my perspective, and then getting really bent out of shape when they don't see things from my perspective. This really can ruin your relationships if you don't know already. Okay. So this is something that you really want to start putting your awareness on. If you find yourself having to over explain yourself, if you find yourself trying to prove your point to people to make sure that they see things through your lens and from your perspective, you probably you're probably getting a little too defensive about things. All right. And that's not a quality that you want to have. Okay. Now, a second sign that you are a crash out is that you turn everything into an argument. Now, like I was saying in the first one, is that, yeah, you get defensive, but you take it to another level when where now you're arguing. And it's not like some, casual debate, like, saying like some first take type shit. No, now you're like going back and forth. Now you're kind of getting heated. Now you getting riled up in here on an internal level, but you may not even recognize that it's happening. So, because you lack the self-awareness to know that, you're shifting a little bit. Your emotional state is shifting. You're getting passionate. That's what I used to always call it. I was always passionate about things. And even in being passionate, you still can kind of get out of pocket, you know? And that was something that I struggled with. Like I said, in my relationships, I struggled with it quite a bit. And my intention was not to turn everything into arguments, but it was kind of one of those things that I didn't recognize when and why it was happening. I didn't recognize it until I, would ruin relationships, or when I found myself having to repair the relationship quite a bit. And I had to do some deep soul searching on why do I let things get the best of me to that point where I have to argue about it, and that shit was very unhealthy, because when you start arguing, you may or may not notice this, man. You get all wound up. You're trying to prove your case. You may be yelling. You may be, I was going to say, you may be sweating, but hopefully you're not sweating. But like I said, you may just be going off the deep end. You may be cussing. You may be name calling, and you're having this back and forth. And then when it's all said and done, now you're drained. Now you're tired, and you're like, yo, how did I even get to this point? And it's just because you're not able to shut it off. You know what I mean? You're letting the moment get the better of you, okay? And that's something that you want to start working on, all right? All right, now the third sign that you are a crash out is that you take everything personally. I struggled with this as well. Like I said, everything on this list I struggled with, okay? You personalize everything. It could be a look. It could be a little comment that you're taking as disrespect. And this was something that I had to truly get a hold on, man. I wasn't even able to do this until like I read this book. I talk about it all the time. It's called The Four Agreements. And the second agreement in that book is to stop taking things personally. I highly suggest this book too. If you've ever heard of it, never heard of it, you need to look into getting it. Because the way that they are able to present why you take things personally, what's really happening, the way that they can present that to you, man, is better than I could present it to you. You know what I mean? And it really just kind of opens your eyes to things. And all this really boils down to is self-awareness. You know, when we go through life and we're taking everything personally, we lose sight that everybody is going through their walk of life. Everybody is on their own journey. So there's no need to be personalizing everything that somebody is saying or doing to you. That's not to say let people disrespect you and allow people to treat you like shit. That's not what I'm saying at all. You know, there is a line here. You know, there is a point where you have to set boundaries for yourself or maybe even cut people off. But for the most part, in everyday life, you know, for example, you're driving, you know, on the highway or something and somebody cuts in front of you. Actually, I'll give you even a better example. I used to take this personally all the time. When I was driving and you let somebody merge in front of you and they don't give you the wave, you know what I'm saying? It sounds so simple, right? But that shit used to irk me. You know, I used to be like, oh, yeah, you ain't gonna give me the wave? Well, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was kind of one of those things like, damn, Bryce, it ain't that serious. But for some reason, you know, when I didn't get the wave, it was almost like a sign of disrespect to me. Like they weren't giving me the courtesy back of, letting them kind of get in front of me. That ever happened to you? You ever experienced anything like that? You know, if it has, leave me a comment and let me know. But yeah, that's just a sign, just one instance of taking things way too personally, like it's a personal shot at me. And that's another thing that I had to learn too, that not everything is a personal shot at me. The way that I interpret things up here in my mind, my filter, my lens of how I see the world and my conditioning, that's really what's kind of painting the picture of the experience that I'm having. That's why I'm taking it personally. It's just from my past experiences. And when I was finally able to realize this with the help of that book that I just told you about too, when I was finally able to realize it, man, I was really able to kind of stop taking things so personally. And that really changed my life, man. Now, don't get me wrong. Every now and again, things pop up, where it may feel personal. You might be at your job and somebody, says something to you a certain way. And you might be like, yo, you don't have to speak to me that way. And you take it personally. But again, like I said, if that does happen, you have to set a boundary for yourself. You might have to have a conversation with that person and say, hey, the way you spoke to me earlier, that doesn't work for me when people speak to me that, or whatever you have to do, but like I said, as far as everyday little moment to moment shit, when you are personalizing everything and you're not able to kind of like have the awareness to know that it's not personal and that leads you to crashing out and going off the deep end and doing things and saying things that you don't mean, that you regret and that you gotta take back and go fix. That's what I'm talking about. When you get to that point, so it's really important to be more mindful of yourself and to really improve your self-awareness so that you don't let what other people say and do to you have such an effect on you and allow you to get to that point of where you crash out. If this video is providing you any value so far, please smash the like button. I really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you know when I make more videos just like this, all right? Now, this last reason that you are a crash out and it is showing, this is a deep one, y'all. It's because you can't regulate your emotions. This was a huge one that I struggled with, okay? And I'm not going to get too therapeutic on it, but what I mean is like, you don't know how to get yourself back calm and you are reacting to things from that place of like internal chaos where you're all wound up, you're taking things personally, you're defensive, all these things that I'm saying on this list, you're responding from that place. You don't know how to regulate yourself. And to be specific, when I say regulate yourself, what I more so mean is you don't know how to get yourself back to zero. And I truly struggled with this, especially like not having seen this modeled growing up. You know, I think a lot of us struggle with this. We didn't see how to regulate our emotions. We didn't see how to get yourself back to zero. Like, what does that even look like? Man, I had to go on a journey of how to figure this out. Whether it's like literally walking away from a situation or giving myself time before I respond. This was something I was definitely not good at. You know, when something happens, it's almost like I have to address it right in that moment. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that I made. And you may be making this mistake as well, too. So it's really important to learn to regulate yourself. Okay. And one of the key ways to do that, man, is start focusing on your breathing. When somebody says something to you, give yourself some time, give yourself some space. You know, whatever they said, man, whatever like activated you in a way, just know that you don't have to respond to it right in that moment. And it's probably better if you don't respond to it in that moment. I say that a lot in all my videos, man. Like, we think that we need to address it right then, but that's where you're gonna say some foul shit, or you're gonna do something that you regret. So it's really important to understand, like, stop letting the moment get the better of you. Stop letting whatever's happening in this moment dictate how you react right then and there on the spot. You have to start working the muscle of stepping away, creating some space between what was said to you and how you respond to it. That space in between, bro, is where the magic happens. That's where the growth is. That's where the beauty is. That's one thing that I had to truly work on, is to expand that space. Okay, and I can't really stress it enough, man. It's like, yo, whenever they say something to you, don't respond right away. It's gonna be hard. It's hard as shit to not do that. Believe me, I know. Okay, and it's gonna take you some practice to do that. And that's what I mean by, learning to work the muscle of that. Everything has a learning curve in life. Even you not responding to things right away. There's a learning curve to that. You're not going to be able to do it just right away. But I'm hopeful that this video can highlight some of these behaviors for you so that you can start to put awareness on when it's happening in your life. Okay. And when it's taking control of the moment and you're responding from like this little boy or little girl way of acting, and you're not really responding from a place of, integrity and authenticity. And that's what happens when we let the moment get the best of us. Okay. So if anything in this video resonated with you, and any of these points stand out to you and you want to work on this and improve this, then use the link in the description and book a one-on-one call with me. Okay. You and we will have a conversation. We will talk about the challenges that keep popping up in your life, that keep you crashing out and not having control of yourself. We will discuss that, and we will set up strategies so that when it starts to happen, you are setting yourself up for success, so you can start working the muscle to stop crashing out and start learning how to respond from a place of integrity. All right. So again, use that link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out this video right here. And I also have a playlist on emotional intelligence, man. That's the key as well, too. And I'll leave that link for you as well. All right. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.